Hello, everybody, and welcome back to British English Pod with me, Lewis. And let me know, where in the world are you listening or watching from, and what time of day is it? As you may know, I am based in Brussels, and it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a Sunday. I've just watched a football match, a disappointing football match, because my team lost. So, yeah, I thought, well, I'm not going to sulk and be sad and do nothing for the rest of the day. Instead, I'm going to do something productive. So I thought, to try to distract my mind from the defeat in the football match, I thought, all right, I'll record a pod. I'll record a podcast. At least that way, I'll be thinking about something else, and I don't have to get down and sad and down in the dumps about the fact that my football team isn't very successful. What a shame. But hey, I'm used to it. This has been the case all my life, so it's nothing new. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But what are we going to do today? What is the plan? Well, I'll tell you what the plan is. So I was having a look for some random debatable topics, asking ChatGPT, Googling a little bit as well, and I've come across 10 debatable topics that I'm going to chat about and tell you what I think, whether I agree or disagree. If I partially agree or I completely agree. So we're going to go through them one by one, and some of them are relatively controversial, but you know me. I don't mind letting you know how I feel about something. I think that's good for society to share our opinions, even if we don't have the same opinions and we're not on the same page. I think what the world needs is that we discuss these things and we try to explain why we have a certain opinion, so then the other party can understand us and see at least where we're coming from. And then from there, if we want to, and we are mature about it, we can shake hands and, well, agree to disagree. So if any of my opinions are a little bit strange for you, or if you disagree with them, no problem. Let me know and tell me, why do you see things the other way round? I'd be curious to find out as well. And maybe you can convince me to change my opinion. Who knows? Who knows? So, without further ado, let's get straight to the point and let's kick off with these 10 debatable topics. So I'm going to share my screen for those of you who are watching this video. And if you're just listening, don't worry, because I'll be reading out all of the debatable topics anyway. So the first one is related to social media platforms. And the discussion point is, should social media platforms require real name verification? Now, let me explain what this means with some practical examples. So, LinkedIn, for example, difficult pronunciation, that's LinkedIn, LinkedIn, LinkedIn. Well, for LinkedIn, you are not allowed to set up an account without using your real name and surname. You have to be a real person. At least I'm pretty sure that is the case. However, on the other hand, for Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, I think all other social networks, you're allowed to make like 5 different accounts, maybe even more if you do it in a creative way. And you can use multiple accounts at the same time. I do that. I have my personal Instagram, I have English with Lewis, and I have English con Lewis. So I have multiple accounts, and you don't need to say your name. You don't need to say where you're from. You don't need to say anything, I don't think. And for certain people, this is good because you can protect your privacy and you know that all of your information and your data is not as likely to end up in the wrong hands. I know some students and friends who have an account that is called something completely different to their name. It can be a little bit strange. I understand why people will do it for security reasons and privacy reasons. But then, me being me, a lot of people, I think, do this because they want to hide their identity from others. Maybe they are hiding their identity from their family, or maybe from their work colleagues, or for other reasons. Perhaps they have a very, very strange hobby and they only want to interact with content creators or other people about this hobby with a private account that doesn't require real name verification. And that's all. That's okay, you know. Everybody is entitled to keeping their own privacy. But I feel that there are a lot of haters online, in particular on Twitter, now called X. There are a lot of haters. And on Instagram, I see some haters as well. And there'll be people like sending messages, maybe trying to be funny and tell a joke. But then there'll be other people who will just be straight up spreading hate messages and criticizing other people. And it's not nice. Like, nobody wants to be insulted by someone they don't know. Like, it's not cool. Guys, what's the point? Why are you doing it? But I'd imagine that the people who are doing this are not going to give their real name. Because then if they actually spread hate, it could be an offense. It could be a crime. And if they cannot be traced using their real name and surname, then, you know, they're fine. They will get away with it without any issues. So I would say that I think social media platforms should enforce real name verification, because that way, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have no reason to worry, but it will prevent some haters from becoming haters online because they might be worried about the repercussions and the consequences of what their messages could bring. So I would say Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, etc., you should think about requiring real name verification. Whether YouTube does it or not, I'm not 100% sure. But I'm 99% sure that Instagram doesn't force you to do this. So that might be why there are so many randomers spreading hate. So that's what I think on the first point. But let me know, do you agree, disagree, and why? Moving on to the next one, we have an interesting debate, and it is about school uniforms. So the question I ask you is, should school uniforms be mandatory? Should school uniforms be mandatory? Well, when I went to school, I always had school uniforms. So perhaps I will be a little bit biased here. And yeah, at primary school, we had school uniform. Then at grammar school, which is secondary school and high school, we also had school uniforms. And this was a state school, both of them. So I didn't go to private school. My parents didn't pay for me to go to a private school because they're very expensive. And yeah, expensive, exclusive. I wouldn't have felt comfortable going to a private school, to be honest. But even at state schools in the United Kingdom, the majority require you to wear a school uniform, which tends to be, in primary school, a polo shirt and a jumper with some normal grey or black trousers. And then when you get to secondary school or high school, you tend to have the same trousers and the same shoes, but then you'll start wearing a shirt and a blazer. And a blazer is a jacket, like a suit jacket. And at least in my school, then we had to wear a tie as well. So every single day, you had to wear a tie, a blazer, a shirt, trousers, all of it, the lot. And I didn't mind it, to be honest. From time to time, once every 6 months maybe, we had a non-uniform day. And this was like on a Friday for a special occasion or a public holiday. And the school would allow us to dress down, let's say, and we could wear whatever we wanted. And this was always amazing because you felt free to express yourself using your clothes. And I've never been that big on fashion and clothes, but even still, I loved going to school wearing a football shirt rather than a normal shirt and a tie. Of course, obviously. But there'd always be some people who would forget that it was a non-uniform day and they'd end up going to school wearing uniform. Luckily, this never happened to me, but I remember looking at other people who it had happened to and thinking like, what a relief. Thank God it wasn't me. Well, anyway, what do I think about this? I think that school uniforms are a good thing. So I think they should be mandatory. And what are my reasons for that? Well, first of all, for the parents, it's much easier. If you know exactly what your child or children are going to wear every day, then it's another headache you don't have to consider and think about. And that should not be underestimated. So that's the big plus for the parents, but also for the children. Because with the kids, if they have a certain style that is unlike the majority of the other students, there's always the danger of bullying. And if everybody wears exactly the same uniform, then this is one less danger of bullying. Because you think, well, we are the same. We're not different. So there's no reason for the badly behaved children to bully someone else. So for the parents, it's easier. For the children, it's easier and safer, I would say. And aside from that, I guess it's a good thing for children to get used to dressing up and having a dress code. Because when you enter the working world, most companies require you to dress in a certain way with shirt or a suit or anything like that. You might notice that I'm not a big fan of this. Like, I don't like dressing up. I like being in my shorts and t-shirt and that's it. But many companies will require you to dress in this way. So if you start getting used to it when you're at school, then the transition will be easier when you enter the workforce and become, well, a working adult, I suppose. So yeah, I think that school uniforms should be mandatory. They should be compulsory. They should be obligatory. And I mentioned the world of work. This next point is related to that. So, our third discussion point is artificial intelligence a threat to human jobs? Now, I can kind of guess that you might be a little bit sick of hearing about AI, because AI is everywhere at the moment. Whether it's people on LinkedIn posting about all the latest AI tools and gadgets and devices, or it's with your friends speaking about ChatGPT, or, when I'm mentioning AI in these videos. So I am one of these people who is a little bit obsessed with the evolution and revolution of artificial intelligence, because it's a turning point in the world, and it is a game changer, because a lot of the things that I do on my daily routine are much more efficient nowadays thanks to artificial intelligence. To name a few off the top of my head, I edit using AI to make it much faster. If I cannot think of ideas for videos, I consult AI to try and get some inspiration. When I'm writing an email, I make sure that AI is there to correct any little typos that I might be about to make. When I'm making my newsletter and blog, I'm always using AI as well to just speed things up. So I'm aware that I'm using AI a lot. And in another world, it could be human beings who would be helping me with all of these day-to-day tasks that I now do with the help of artificial intelligence. But there is a nice quote that I've read a few times, and it is that AI isn't going to take your job. However, another person using AI will take it. And this is quite a powerful thought. So AI, artificial intelligence, isn't going to steal your job, but someone using AI will. And I remember reading that like a year ago and thinking, oh my God, yeah, this guy has a point. He might be right about it, you know? There are more and more people adopting artificial intelligence, and they're becoming more efficient, more effective, more productive, thanks to this adoption of artificial intelligence. So if I don't jump on the bandwagon, then I might be left behind. And I think it is entirely possible that people who are resistant to using AI may end up being left behind in the workforce and in industry. Because, of course, everything is going to take you much longer. And the only resource that is completely limited that every human being has is time. We cannot get more time. The only way of getting more time is by not sleeping or living forever, which I wouldn't want to do either of these things. So, do I think that AI will threaten and replace human jobs? A little bit, yeah. I wish I was more optimistic and positive about this, but if we see how much AI has changed in the last 2 years, it's mental. It's crazy how it continues to get better and faster. So I wonder, will people just learn English with robots in the future? Will teachers become completely redundant? What is the future? So I ask myself these questions, and I ask myself these questions for a lot of other industries as well. And it's hard for me to look on the bright side and be positive about it, because I think that AI is going to take over many jobs. Yes, there will be other jobs that will be born, and this will allow certain people to change their skills and adapt and get a different job in a different field. But it's hard for me to say that there will be more jobs for human beings in the future if we are going to invest more and more money in artificial intelligence. So yeah, let me know. How scared are you about AI? Because this is a conversation I have quite a lot with my students, and it's an interesting one to at least consider all of the options and be awake to the dangers of AI, whilst also highlighting how useful it can be to save money and time. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, and this is number 4, I believe, and it is, should voting be mandatory in democratic countries? So if you live in a democracy, in a democratic country, should voting be mandatory for people who are 18 and older? This Decisions. Well, I'll be honest. I have voted twice in my life, and I should have voted more often because I'm 32. So I have been able to vote 3 times, I think, or maybe 4 times if we include the Brexit referendum. And both times I've done it, I have given my mum the power and rights to vote on my behalf. So I've told her, like, Mum, I'm not going to be home for this date. Would you be able to send the vote for me? And she's done it both times. Hopefully, she's done what I told her to do. Maybe she did the complete opposite. Who knows? But I've voted twice in total in my life, when I could have and should have voted 3 or 4 times. So maybe I'm not the best person to be saying this. But I voted in the Brexit referendum. I voted to remain in the EU, as you might imagine, given that I'm an English teacher and I've lived in the EU for the last 10 years, more or less. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. The majority, more or less, voted to leave the European Union. It's a shame, but, I've moved on. I've got over it. And the other time I voted was just a couple of years ago when, was it a couple of years ago? No, I think it was last year when we had elections in the United Kingdom, and I voted for Keir Starmer for the Labour government because he represented a change, and I'm a little bit more left-wing than I am right-wing, but I consider myself from the centre, generally speaking. So yeah, I voted for him as well, and he was elected, and I think he's doing a pretty good job, despite very challenging circumstances at the moment. So that's my track record when it comes to voting. And I think that everybody should vote. And you might have different reasons why you wouldn't, different excuses. These could be that you're not a fan of either candidate. Trust me, I know what you feel. So people don't vote for that reason. Other people won't vote just because they don't care about politics. There'll be different reasons why people wouldn't vote in democratic elections. But it's a shame, and then I think it's not an accurate representation of what the country really wants if 40% or 50% of the electorate don't turn up and vote. So this is just something that I've been thinking in recent years, but I believe that it would be better if everybody was forced to vote. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a hassle to vote. A hassle is something that it's difficult to do because you'll have to go to a polling station, you'll have to physically write it down, you've got to go a specific day. I reckon that it would be easier and there would be less of a barrier to entry if people could just vote using an application on their phone the day of the elections, and you can automate it all. This would be a good thing that AI could do for us, perhaps. Because that way, you would know exactly what everybody wants. And even if you don't like either main candidate, you can always vote tactically to be able to keep the worst politician out of power. Because there will be times when you don't like the leader of the right, nor the left, nor the center, but you always know which one you really don't want to end up in power. I'm speaking to you, Americans. So you have to vote tactically sometimes. You have to vote thinking that I have a vote. Of course, it's just one person, but if everybody thought the same way, then we wouldn't get anywhere as a civilization. So my one vote could go a long way. So you have to think, no, of course I don't want that guy to be the leader of my country. That could be dangerous. So I'm going to vote for the other person, even if I don't really like them, but they are the lesser of two evils. So that's my opinion related to the topic. I think that everybody should vote. It should be illegal not to vote. We just need to make it easier for the electorate, the people who have the right to vote. So it's, done in the click of a button. Then there would be zero excuses. Trust me. All right. Continuing with political stuff. Yeah, I apologize if you don't like politics. But the next one is an interesting thing in general, whether you like politics or not. And the question is universal basic income a good idea? Now let's begin with what universal basic income is. Universal basic income is when every citizen will receive a certain amount of money just for existing, basically. And this has been trialed and tested in different countries where they give, let's say, 1,000 euros to every citizen instead of maybe investing in other, let's say, funding, investments, infrastructural work, lots of different things, so that everybody will always have enough money to pay the bills and to pay for food. And the idea behind this is to try and remove, or at least make, inequality less noticeable. So if everybody is receiving 1,000 euros per month, then, it shows that there is a little bit of work being done to increase equality and make people more equal, because we all have this universal right to receive this income. Now, this is not designed to take over your main job. It's not designed to make people lazy and discourage them from working. I think, as far as I know, that this is just to ensure that everybody has a little bit of money. Nobody is going to be completely broke where they end up being homeless. And at the same time, if AI is going to take over all of our jobs, then we're going to have to consider something like this. If robots start doing 20%, 30% of all jobs, then there is going to be inevitably a huge amount of people who are unemployed. And the state has to provide for these people. So universal basic income could be a good way of starting that and kind of testing it on a larger scale to see what the conclusions are. With this debate, I haven't 100% made up my mind. I don't know if it's a good thing or not, to be honest, because on the one hand, I can see the fact that it could be good, because then it should ensure that everybody has at least the basics to get by and make ends meet. But the biggest criticism for this is that it doesn't really encourage any kind of entrepreneurial spirit or hard work. Because if you're just giving people money every single month for existing, then, it might take away a little bit of the inspiration, motivation, work ethic, and ethos that many people might have. It goes completely against the idea of capitalism, which as a system, I'd say on the whole has worked out to be pretty successful across the globe. There are exceptions, but on the whole, it's been a success. So this is the first one I'm going to have to probably say that I am on the fence. I am undecided. I can't really make up my mind which option is better. I'd be curious to trial universal basic income, but I'm not sure it would be the ultimate solution to the world. On that note, let's keep going. let's move on. And here we have a bit of a more light-hearted debate. And it is lying ever justified? Is it ever okay to tell a lie? Well, yes, it can be justified. Nobody is ever going to tell the truth 100,000% of the time. It's impossible. Everybody tells lies. Of course they do. Think about little babies. Like, if you're a parent speaking to your child and your child is asking what they're going to get for Christmas, and you tell them that Santa Claus is going to bring all of these things, riding his reindeers and coming down the chimney, you're lying. It's not true. Sorry if there are any young children here listening, but I hate to break it to you, but Father Christmas, Santa, the magical kings, they don't actually give you any presents. It's your parents. If there are any children who have been listening to this, you are not my intended audience. But welcome to the show, and I have just taught you something very, very vital. But this is a funny example of how lying can be justified. Parents lie to their children because they want to keep them innocent, to get them excited about something, to keep the magic of Christmas. So that's one comical, funny example. But there are other ones as well. You can lie to your partner. You can lie to your family. I don't know. There are many examples when lying is justified, and people tell white lies. Let's say that my girlfriend is trying on different dresses, and she tries one on, and I don't think it suits her that much. I'm probably going to lie to her. I'm probably going to say, "Oh, that looks amazing. You look beautiful." She will look beautiful, but maybe I don't think it's the best dress. And that would be an example of me telling a white lie. It's just a minor lie that's not going to do any harm. So that's another funny little example. And I think we have to tell lies from time to time, as long as it's not like an evil lie that could end up getting you into trouble. So that's the important thing. You can tell little lies, but when it's a serious lie, consider the consequences. But yeah, I never lie. Never ever. Okay, next, we have this big one, and it is related to money and happiness. It is, can money buy happiness? I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're going to say. If I ask you, can money buy happiness? I would bet my house on the fact that you would say no. But it helps, right? Was that what you were thinking? Of course it was. That's what everybody thinks. Because I've asked this question so many times, and it's true. Money is so important in life. We need money to survive. We need money to do things in your free time. We need money to have a family. We need money to buy or rent a house. You need money to do practically everything. And there are very few things that you can do if you don't have money. You can go for a walk. You can go for a bike ride if you've already spent money on getting a bike. You could go for a run if you spent money on buying sports clothes and shoes. You could read a book if you got the book from the library or you got it from a friend. I'm struggling to think of other things you can do for free that can make you happy. So yeah, I am drawing a blank. To draw a blank is to be thinking of something and be unable to find the answer to that thing. So I'm drawing a blank. So of course, if you are a millionaire or billionaire, this doesn't mean you're going to be happy. And many times, if you are super, ooper, duper rich, then I'd say it's arguably more likely that you will be unhappy because, more money, more problems. And if you are in the spotlight, then you're not going to feel that comfortable in your own skin and you won't be able to relax as much. And the more you get used to buying things, the less you appreciate what money can buy you. So if you've got $1 million in the bank and you go out for a lovely meal and then you buy some jewelry and then you go to, I don't know, a swanky, hip, posh bar for some cocktails that cost you €100 per cocktail, you're going to be numb to the feeling of actually enjoying it because you're so used to just splashing the cash and spending money. So as you spend money and do all of these things, I think you maybe enjoy it less and less. Whereas if it's really hard for you to earn money and become richer, then when you do decide to spend your money, it feels better because you know all of the work that has gone into buying this car, for example. But yeah, money cannot buy you happiness. Money cannot buy you happiness. No, it will help, of course. And you need to have money to have a good life. You don't need to be rich, but you need to have enough money to not have money as like something that stresses you out and makes you anxious. Because if you are in red numbers, you're in debt, then of course it's hard to be relaxed and be happy. You're bound to be anxious about it. So money can remove a lot of unhappiness, but it cannot push you to the next level in making you happy. That's what I'd say. And I think that is what most people will say as well. That it won't make you happy, but it will help, for sure. Okay, next point. It is, are self-driving cars safer than human drivers? And this is returning to the topic of AI. God, I'm annoying, aren't I? So self-driving cars are cars that are driven by the machine, by artificial intelligence, that will have got lots of data and lots of information. They will know the speed limit. They will know how to brake, accelerate, change gears, scan for traffic. They know how to stop at red lights and go at green lights. They know all of the theory of how to be a good driver. And human drivers, well, that's what we've always had. And you might have some friends who are great safe drivers and other friends who are a little bit reckless, a little bit dangerous, and they drive recklessly. And human beings, we, of course, make mistakes. So if we make mistakes when driving, it can be fatal, of course. And sometimes we'll be tired. Maybe we'll, I don't know, there'll be a mosquito in your car, and then you'll be trying to hit that mosquito. And then you might move from side to side using the steering wheel. So human drivers are always going to make mistakes because of a variety of reasons. And self-driving cars, it is yet to be seen if they make as many mistakes or not. So I don't know if they are safer or not, because the only way of finding out is if we built a city where only self-driving cars could kind of move around on the roads. Because if you've got a combination of human drivers and self-driving cars, then humans won't understand the self-driving cars and vice versa. So there might be accidents that are not the fault of the robot, and it might be caused by human drivers. Personally, given how technology is always evolving and getting better, I would say that in the near future, self-driving cars will probably be safer than human drivers. And, it's also quite nice if you don't have to order a taxi and you don't have to have a designated driver. You can, get in your car, have the car drive you to a party, park it, and then when you're finished at the party and you want to go home, get back in the car, type in the address, close your eyes, and you can wake up back home. So I think self-driving cars would be pretty cool, but at the same time, they would take the jobs of taxi drivers and Uber drivers. So that's something we have to be aware of. All right, next. Are standardized tests a fair measure of student ability? Are standardized tests a fair measure of student ability? And standardized tests would be the ones that you have done all your life, I'm sure, where you have multiple choice or you have gap fills and you have some kind of like essays. A standardized test is the test and exam that we have always done. And I believe it was created, this concept was created and introduced like now probably 100 years ago. And this is an area of debate, mainly because the education system's way of evaluating the skills and abilities of students hasn't really changed for a very, very long time, while the world has been changing a lot. So I think they are a means, they are a way of testing people's ability, but there are lots of students that are just not cut out for the traditional education system. Yesterday, I was watching a documentary on Netflix about a climber who has ADHD, and he was one of the best climbers in the world. Sadly, he passed away being a climber, but one of the interviews that he was giving was that when he was a child, going to school was like being incarcerated for him. It was like he was in prison because he couldn't sit still. Sorry, I'll repeat that. He couldn't sit still. He couldn't stay still. So the traditional way of educating and traditional tests are maybe not the best way of appealing to all students and all individuals, because there are different creative minds who might not be cut out for traditional education and traditional tests, and they might fail at all of these things because we're unable to understand how they could, let's say, get the most out of the system. So there has to be a variety of different ways of testing, I think. We can't just have the traditional tests, but we should also have more role plays, presentations, debates, challenges, and stuff that we can do to evaluate a wider range of skills and abilities for young people and the future adults in society. So that's perhaps not the clearest explanation of how I feel, but I think you get my drift. Meaning, I think you understand what I'm trying to say. That it's perhaps not a fair measure of a student's ability, but it's a means to an end, but it should be supplemented by different types of tests. What those tests are, who knows? Now, I believe this is the last one, and it's related to food. So, of course, it is my favorite debate. I was saving it till last, just like when you're eating something you really, really enjoy, and you'll always leave the tastiest piece until the end. You are saving it till last. By the way, let me know if you do this. I always do it. I always try to save the most delicious mouthful to be my last mouthful of that meal. But the debatable topic is, should junk food be heavily taxed? Should the tax office increase the taxes on fast food and junk food? And here, I completely agree. I strongly agree that junk food should be heavily taxed, because you will notice sometimes that when you're comparing prices at the supermarket or a market, it's actually cheaper to buy junk. It's cheaper to buy rubbish. So in particular, for people who don't have a lot of money, they're going to try to save money when they are buying food. So they will look at cheap crisps, chocolate, cheap meat, cheap carbs, and they'll buy whatever it is just to fill themselves up and feed the family. When junk food shouldn't be cheap. It shouldn't, because then the people with a lower income are going to be more unhealthy as well. And this inequality just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. If anything, we should ensure that the healthiest food is the cheapest food. And this would, in turn, encourage people to eat a more balanced diet and a healthier diet. Because at least that way, people who have less disposable income would be healthier. And if you are healthier, often you can think better and you have a longer and more prosperous life. That's my way of thinking. It's true that it makes me a little bit sad seeing that chocolates and biscuits and all of these things that are bad for your health are often really cheap. What we're seeing nowadays in Europe with the prices of tobacco going up and up and up due to taxes from the government in the UK, in Belgium, I think it happens in France and Germany, smoking is becoming more and more expensive. So, as a result of this, people are smoking less and less. So I think the same thing should happen with junk food. It should be heavily taxed to promote healthy food and make healthy food much cheaper than junk food. I think we can all agree on that, right? Surely. And now on that note, I'm going to order a burger and have some ice cream and lots of chocolate. I'm joking. I'm just kidding. But that is it for today. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me ranting and rambling and going in random directions, answering these 10 debatable topics. And let me know, do you agree with my thoughts? If you disagree with me, please let me know, and we can have a nice discussion for sure. It'd be interesting. I would be up for it. And as always, if you would like to join my classes, my group classes, or private classes, you can look in the video description. And if you have any doubts, do not hesitate to ask. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.